A man walks into a lavish mountain resort, carrying nothing but his dignity and a mind full of dreams. Within moments, he's humiliated and turned away, not for who he is, but for the assumptions they make about him. What happens next will unravel secrets that no one saw coming and ignite a firestorm of justice. If you're ready to dive into stories that challenge your perspective and inspire change, hit subscribe now. Let's start. The Sapphire Haven Resort stood as a monument to privilege, its gleaming marble floors and crystal chandeliers whispering of wealth that few could ever touch. It was the kind of place where people came not just for luxury, but to be seen, their status confirmed by the very air they breathe inside its walls. Yet beneath its polished surface lay an unspoken truth. This world catered only to those it deemed worthy, and worthiness here had little to do with character and everything to do with appearances. Jordan Hughes stepped through the grand entrance, his tailored blazer brushing against the edge of his suitcase as he moved. He carried himself with quiet confidence, his presence commanding without being loud. A celebrated author known for novels that peeled back the layers of societal injustices, Jordan understood power dynamics better than most. But today, he wasn't here to write about them. He was here to escape them, if only briefly. The peaceful solitude of the mountains promised clarity for his next book, one he hoped would inspire change in ways even his previous works hadn't. But clarity wouldn't come easily. At the front desk, Claire Monroe greeted him with a smile, so practiced it didn't reach her eyes. "Good afternoon," she said, glancing at the reservation screen before meeting his gaze just long enough to seem polite. Then came the shift, a flicker of discomfort crossing her face like a shadow. "Passing over the sun, I'm sorry, Mr." She paused deliberately, waiting for him to fill in the blank. "Hughes," Jordan replied, his voice steady despite the question lingering behind hers. "Jordan Hughes." Claire tapped at her keyboard unnecessarily, buying time. When she finally spoke again, her tone was clipped. "I don't see your name on our list, Mr. Hughes. Are you sure you have a reservation?" Jordan frowned, pulling out the confirmation email on his phone. "Yes, I made it weeks ago. Here." He held up the screen, showing her the details plainly visible. She barely glanced at it. "We don't make mistakes here," she said smoothly, though there was no mistaking the implication beneath her words. "Perhaps another establishment might suit your needs." Each word landed like a stone dropped into still water, rippling outward until it settled somewhere deep within him. Jordan felt the heat rise in his chest, not from embarrassment but from recognition. The familiar sting of exclusion masked as courtesy. Still, he chose restraint. "Are you saying I can't stay because of some error that isn't mine?" Before Claire could respond, a soft laugh drew their attention. Evelyn Sterling approached, her heels clicking sharply against the floor. Dressed in a designer dress that screamed affluence, she exuded authority simply by existing in the space. Her lips curled into a smirk as she took in the scene, her gaze lingering on Jordan just a fraction too long. Well, Evelyn said, her voice dripping with condescension. "This is certainly unexpected." Her smirk widened as Claire shifted uncomfortably beside her. "Mr. Sterling, we were just handling—" Yes, Evelyn interrupted dismissively. "No need to explain." She turned back to Jordan, her expression unreadable except for the faint triumph dancing in her eyes. "Let's not waste everyone's time, shall we?" As Claire gestured toward security, Jordan hesitated, torn between indignation and disbelief. This wasn't just rejection, it was erasure, a deliberate attempt to strip him of dignity in front of strangers who watched silently, unsure whether to intervene or look away. And then, as he turned to leave, something stopped him cold. "Evelyn," muttered under her breath, just loud enough for him to hear. Jordan Hughes. It wasn't the use of his name that jarred him. It was the way she said it, like she knew him, knew more than she should. Outside, the crisp mountain air did little to cool the anger simmering inside him. Humiliation burned hotter than shame, gnawing at his resolve. Did he belong here? Was this rejection rooted in something deeper than a simple misunderstanding? Questions swirled in his mind, each one feeding the doubt that threatened to take hold. And yet, amidst the turmoil, another thought crept in, one that chilled him more than the wind biting at his skin. If Evelyn knew who he was, what else did? Do you know what secrets lay buried beneath her polished exterior, waiting to unravel? For now, the answers remained elusive, but Jordan sensed that whatever lay ahead, it wouldn't end quietly. Not for him, and not for the world of privilege that had tried so hard to shut him out. Jordan sat in his car, gripping the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. The anger hadn't subsided, it had only shifted, settling into a simmering frustration that made it hard to think clearly. He needed someone who would understand, someone who wouldn't tell him to let it go or shrug it off as how things are. Picking up his phone, he scrolled through his contacts and tapped on Marcus Reed's name. "Marcus," Jordan said when the call connected, his voice tight with barely contained emotion. "I need to talk." Marcus listened without interrupting, his silence heavy but comforting. When Jordan finished recounting what happened at the resort, Marcus exhaled sharply. "Damn them," he muttered, his tone sharp with fury. "They don't get to do this to you, to anyone. You've earned your place in this world 10 times over, and if they can't see that, then screw them." His words struck a chord, but Jordan still felt the weight of doubt pressing down on him. "It's not just about me, though," he admitted quietly. "What if I make it worse? What if people start seeing me as difficult, like I'm playing the victim?" Marcus cut him off firmly. "You're not playing anything, Jordan. This isn't about perception. It's about truth, and sometimes the truth pisses people off because it forces them to look at themselves. Don't back down from this. Use your voice. Let people know exactly what happened." The encouragement bolstered Jordan, but the next blow came swiftly and unexpectedly. Later that evening, while scrolling through old emails for unrelated work, Jordan stumbled upon a thread between Sophia Lane, his literary agent, and an anonymous email address linked to the resort. His heart sank as he read her words. "Just a heads up, he might show up soon. Might be best to prepare accordingly." "Prepare accordingly?" Jordan stared at the screen, disbelief giving way to betrayal. Sophia had been with him since the beginning of his career, guiding him through every milestone. How could she have done this? He called her immediately, his voice trembling with a mix of hurt and rage. "Sophia, what the hell is this?" he demanded, reading the email aloud. There was a long pause before she responded, her tone defensive. "Jordan, listen. I was trying to protect you. Your brand, it's delicate. People expect certain things, and showing up there, well, it could have damaged how they see you." "Damaged how they see me?" he repeated incredulously. "Or how you see me? Did you even stop to think about what kind of message you were sending? That I don't belong somewhere because of who I am?" Her silence spoke volumes. Jordan ended the call abruptly, feeling more isolated than ever. The next day, unable to let the matter rest, Jordan returned to the resort. Not out of defiance, but out of determination. He approached Claire at the front desk, his jaw set. "You owe me an explanation," he said firmly. "Why was I turned away?" Claire blinked, caught off guard by his sudden reappearance. "Sir, please." "No," Jordan interrupted, raising his voice slightly. "You dismissed me without cause. Now, explain yourself." Guests nearby began to notice the exchange, pulling out their phones to record as Claire visibly panicked. She signaled for security, accusing Jordan of trespassing and causing a disturbance. The scene escalated quickly, drawing a crowd that included Amara Patel, a documentary filmmaker staying at the resort for a separate project. Amara watched intently, intrigued by the tension unfolding before her. Something about Jordan's demeanor, the quiet dignity beneath his anger, resonated deeply. After the altercation ended with Jordan leaving once again, Amara decided to dig deeper. She started by reviewing news articles and social media posts about the incident, then reached out to former employees and guests of the resort. Her investigation uncovered troubling patterns, complaints of discriminatory treatment spanning years, all ignored or swept under the rug. Among the documents she found was evidence of Evelyn Sterling's failed attempt to acquire rights to adapt one of Jordan's novels into a film, a professional rejection that had clearly festered into personal animosity. In a flashback, Evelyn sat across from Jordan years earlier, her polished smile masking thinly veiled disdain. "Your book has potential," she'd said during their meeting, "but it needs adjustments. Less focus on those heavy themes. More appeal to mainstream audiences." Jordan had shaken his head firmly. "That's not why I wrote it. If you can't respect my vision, then we have nothing to discuss." Evelyn's smile faltered, replaced by a cold glare. "Then perhaps we don't." She'd replied curtly before walking away. Back in the present, Amara pieced together Evelyn's motivations, realizing how much her actions at the resort were driven by lingering resentment. Meanwhile, Jordan wrestled with self-doubt, replaying the incident in his mind. What if speaking out only reinforced the stereotypes others held about him? What if he became known as someone who cried foul every time life got tough? Marcus reminded him gently. "Remember when you stood up against that bookstore chain refusing to stock your first novel because of its subject matter? Or when you called out that magazine for whitewashing your cover image? You didn't stay silent then, and look where it got you." Progress doesn't happen in silence, Jordan. It happens when people refuse to accept injustice. Those words reignited something in Jordan, a spark of resilience that refused to be extinguished. As word of his treatment spread online, support poured in from readers, fellow authors, and activists alike. Hashtags like Justice for Jordan trended on social media, turning what began as a personal humiliation into a rallying cry for systemic change. For the first time since the ordeal began, Jordan felt a glimmer of hope, not just for himself, but for everyone who'd ever faced similar injustices. Jordan sat alone in his apartment, staring at the glowing screen of his laptop. The headlines screamed accusations at him. Author causes seen at luxury resort. Difficult personality or justified outrage. Each article twisted his words, painting him as the aggressor, a man too proud, too angry, too unreasonable. Social media wasn't any better. Trolls piled on, their comments cruel and relentless. "He's playing the race card again. Why can't he just be grateful?" This is why people don't take authors seriously. The weight of it. I'll press down on him until breathing felt like a chore. For days he avoided calls from friends, ignored messages from supporters, and barely left his couch. What was the point of fighting back when the world seemed determined to misunderstand him? Every attempt to stand up for himself only fueled the fire against him. Was this what Evelyn wanted? To silence him completely? But then Marcus called, not to offer sympathy, but to remind Jordan of who he truly was. "You didn't fight your way here to let them win," Marcus said firmly over the phone. "And you're not alone in this. Remember Sophia?" It hit Jordan like a punch to the gut. He'd been so consumed by self-doubt that he hadn't acted on the betrayal he'd uncovered. Together, Marcus and Jordan released the damning emails, exposing Sophia Lane's repeated attempts to sabotage his career, citing fears about how his brand image might suffer if he stepped out of line. Within hours, the story blew up online. Fans were outraged. Industry insiders distanced themselves from her. By the end of the day, Sophia had resigned from her position. Yet even as public opinion began to shift, Evelyn Sterling moved swiftly to consolidate her victory. Behind closed doors, she manipulated the resort board into issuing a permanent ban against Jordan, framing it as necessary for maintaining the resort's reputation. When the announcement hit the news, Evelyn allowed herself a satisfied smile. She believed she'd silenced him once and foremost. The charity gala arrived, an event designed to celebrate wealth and influence. Evelyn floated through the room, mingling confidently with guests who admired her philanthropic work. Jordan watched from across the hall, feeling small and invisible amidst the glittering crowd. His heart raced as he wondered whether Amara's investigation would yield anything substantial, or if tonight would simply reinforce Evelyn's dominance. Then came the moment no one saw coming. Amara stood at the front of the room, microphone in hand, flanked by a large projector screen. With quiet authority, she addressed the audience. Tonight, we're here to honor progress and equality. But sometimes progress requires confronting uncomfortable truths. She clicked a button, and footage filled the screen. Claire turning Jordan away at the front desk, security escorting him out despite his calm demeanor, Evelyn smirking as she whispered his name under her breath. Gasps rippled through the crowd as they witnessed the raw reality of what had transpired. But Amara wasn't done yet. She played audio recorded earlier that day, a private meeting where Evelyn made racially charged remarks about Jordan, dismissing him as too controversial for the resort's clientele. Her casual disdain was unmistakable, her prejudice laid bare for everyone to hear. The room fell deathly silent. Guests exchanged horrified glances, their admiration for Evelyn crumbling before their eyes. Some shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Others looked away entirely. Evelyn stood frozen, her confident facade shattered. Taking advantage of the stunned atmosphere, Jordan stepped forward. The spotlight found him as he approached the stage, his presence commanding yet vulnerable. He took the microphone from Amara, his hand steady despite the storm raging inside. I never wanted this kind of attention, he began, his voice clear and unwavering. I came to that resort seeking peace, not conflict. But I learned something important during this ordeal. Silence doesn't protect us. It empowers those who seek to divide us. What happened to me wasn't just personal. It's part of a larger pattern, one that many of you may have benefited from without realizing it. His gaze swept across the room, meeting the eyes of those who had doubted him, dismissed him, or turned a blind eye. I'm not here to ask for pity or apologies. I'm here to demand accountability. For myself, for the staff who faced discrimination, and for every person who's ever been told they don't belong because of who they are. As he spoke, the energy in the room shifted. Guests nodded, slowly, some visibly moved by his words. Others whispered among themselves, realizing the depth of the injustice unfolding before them. Even Evelyn, standing pale and rigid near the back of the room, couldn't escape the collective judgment settling around her. By the time Jordan finished speaking, applause erupted, hesitant at first, then thunderous. It wasn't just support. For him, it was acknowledgement of a truth too long ignored. In that moment, Jordan transformed from victim to victor, reclaiming not only his dignity but also his power to inspire change. Amid the stunned silence that followed Jordan's speech, an older man rose from his seat near the back of the room. His name was Harold Whitaker, a retired judge with silver hair and a presence that commanded respect. He walked steadily to the stage, his eyes fixed on Jordan. When he reached the microphone, he didn't waste time with pleasantries. 50 years ago, Harold began, his deep voice resonating through the room. I stood where you are now. I was a young lawyer then, full of hope and ambition. I came to this very resort for a conference, to network, to learn, to grow. But instead, I was turned away because of the color of my skin. The crowd murmured, some leaning forward in disbelief. Harold continued, his tone measured but heavy with emotion. Back then, there was no one to speak up for me. No cameras, no social media, no witnesses willing to challenge what they saw. So I left. And for decades, I carried that memory like a scar, reminding myself that places like this existed, thriving on exclusion. He paused, looking directly at Jordan. But tonight, I see something different. Tonight, I see someone brave enough to say enough, someone who won't let history repeat itself. Harold's words hung in the air, bridging generations of pain and resilience. Then he made an offer. If you're ready to fight, not just for yourself but for everyone who's ever been wronged by this place, I'll help you lead a class action lawsuit against the resort. Together, we can hold them accountable and ensure this never happens again. The weight of Harold's proposal settled over the room. For Jordan, it felt like stepping into uncharted territory. A chance not just to heal his own wounds, but to dismantle the system that had caused so much harm. He nodded, gratitude swelling in his chest. "Thank you," he said simply, knowing. Words couldn't fully capture what this moment meant. As news of the lawsuit spread, Evelyn Sterling's world unraveled. Headlines branded her as the face of elitism and prejudice, her carefully curated image reduced to ash. Friends distanced themselves, colleagues avoided her calls, and even her family struggled to defend her actions. Isolated and disgraced, she became a cautionary tale, a reminder of how quickly power could crumble when built on injustice. Meanwhile, outrage over the resort's practices ignited a firestorm online. Hashtags like "Daisy shut it down" and "accountability for all" trended globally, drawing attention from activists, journalists, and lawmakers. Under mounting pressure, authorities launched investigations into the resort's operations, uncovering decades of discriminatory policies. Within weeks, the Sapphire Haven Resort closed its doors temporarily, its gleaming facade tarnished beyond repair. For Jordan, the victory wasn't just personal, it was transformative. Invitations poured in from organizations eager to hear him speak about systemic racism and inequality. At each event, he shared his story openly, urging others to break their silence and join the fight for justice. His words resonated deeply, inspiring countless individuals to share their own experiences and demand change. In the months that followed, Jordan channeled his emotions into his next novel. This time, he wrote not just about societal injustices, but about the courage it took to confront them. On the dedication page, he penned a heartfelt message. To those who have suffered in silence, for your strength, your resilience, and your unwavering belief in a better future. This is for you. Reflecting on everything he'd endured, Jordan realized that his humiliation at the resort wasn't an isolated incident. It was part of a broader struggle against systems designed to exclude and oppress. That realization fueled his determination to keep fighting, not just for himself, but for generations to come. The story concluded with Jordan standing before a packed auditorium, addressing an audience hungry for hope and direction. "Equality isn't just a dream," he said, his voice steady and impassioned. "It's a choice we make every day. It's choosing to stand together, to amplify voices that have been silenced, and to refuse complacency when faced with injustice." His final words echoed through the hall. "Change starts with us, with our willingness to see, to listen, and to act. Let's build a world where no one has to prove they belong, where dignity isn't earned, it's given freely." As the crowd erupted into applause, tears streaming down many faces, Jordan knew he'd found his purpose. What began as a moment of humiliation had become a beacon of hope, a testament to the power of resilience, authenticity, and collective action. And though the road ahead would be long, he walked it with renewed strength, knowing he wasn't alone.